Welcome to What's the Plan? We'll get started in just a sec. If you're coming in from anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world, please let us know. We're going to let people join and then talk about everything that's going on and what we can do about it. Lori Brandon, you win. You were the first to post. Carbondale, Colorado. You got Virginia. Oh, Warrenton, Virginia. Lovely, lovely place.
Oh, wow.
We've been out there. Los Angeles, Putnam Valley, New York, Seattle, Riverside, Ann Arbor. This is the part of the conversation. Have you been here before where where you're like, yes, we recognize this. There's a movement nationwide. And if you're brand new here, hopefully this is the part where you say, oh my gosh, folks are organizing
Yeah.
everywhere. They're in blue states and red states and purple states and rural areas and suburban areas and urban areas. You're represented by Republicans and Democrats and independents. This is nationwide. We are all organizing to do this. Everybody who's on this call, you've seen what's going on in this world. And instead of saying, well, I guess I'm going to check out, you've raised your hand. And at the very least, you said, I'm going to join this call that I've heard about. And so thank you for being here. We're going to try to make this worth your time.
We've got about 3,000 people on so far and growing.
3,000 and growing. Great to see you all. A lot of good work to be done. There's stuff for you regardless of where you are. We need your help right now. So thank you for joining. We got Austin here. Love to see Austin, my hometown. Rhode Island.
Missouri, Illinois, Pennsylvania, all over the place.
We're going to give folks just another 30 seconds. I know I was posting a Blue Sky earlier today. We heard rumors. We've been hearing rumors for about a month that there was going to be an executive order to shut down the Department of Education, and then we heard additional rumors yesterday. There was reporting that it was going to come out today, and then they said, "Well, not today. It's not going to happen today." So we will see, but live to fight another day. I think we've seen this trend where they float particularly egregious ideas, they get pushed back, and then they hold back a little bit because they don't like that criticism. I take that as a good sign. We got to celebrate the partial victories when we can. We'll give people another 30 seconds to join, but then we're going to get into it. We have a ton of questions to get into. Yes, indeed, we do. Leah, should we get started?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome. It is great to be here with you on this Thursday, 3 p.m. What's the Plan call. I'm Ezra, and
I'm Leah.
this is Leah. We are the co-founders, co-executive directors of Indivisible. We are married, which is why we're sitting so closely together. In case you're like, those co-founders are sitting quite close together. That is odd. It's totally normal. You are reaching us in our very messy room in this little nook, but you can't see that. All you can see is our beautiful background through the magic of technology. Welcome, welcome, welcome. If this is your first time, we need you here. Thank you for being here. There is work for you to do. Hopefully you come out of this not just with some interesting information, but some idea of how you can actually do something where you are. We are a very action-oriented group at our heart. You're going to see me throughout this kind of bending over and trying to scroll through the questions that are coming in and tee them up. Leah is going to take the lead on answering a whole bunch of them. But the point of this, the reason why we all gather here is because we're organizing wherever we are, using the leverage we've got to take on this ridiculous clown show of an administration and Congress. We fight where we can with what we've got. We are building power, and we're applying that power to push back against this heinous agenda, this Project 2025 agenda being foisted upon us by Elon Musk and Donald Trump and these cowards of a Republican Party that are supporting them and getting it done. We're helping Democrats find their spines to fight back, and we're helping to fracture the Republican coalition so we're able to limit their harm and start to regain some power at the national level. That's what we're doing here. Leah, do you want to cover some of the logistics of the call?
Absolutely. All right. So y'all, if you've been here before, you know the drill. This is going to be a quick monologue from Ezra, and then we are going to do mostly Q&A, some live and some submitted. We are going to test out a cool new feature that Ezra's going to walk us through in a minute on that front. This is going to be recorded. It'll be sent out to everyone who registered. We will post links in the chat. If you are not able to get all of the links while you are here, don't worry. They will come back out in the email that we send after the call. We are going to keep these up as long as folks find them useful, considering that more people are joining every week. It seems like people find them useful. So we're just going to keep doing them for now. And then just a general community note. This is a really hard time. We're all facing enormously scary and stressful and painful and sometimes very, very personal circumstances as this administration attacks everything that we care about. Hard times can sometimes cause us to turn on each other and to get into fights in the comments. I am asking everyone here, please do your part to keep the chat box constructive. We are a diverse nationwide movement. We treat each other with respect, especially when we disagree or we are frustrated or scared. That is foundational to our ability to organize together. So let's hold each other up.
That's right. So Leah mentioned we've got this new feature that we're going to try out, and I'm pretty excited for it. When we started these chats over a year ago, I think maybe 300 people came to the first one, so we're at significantly more than that now. And so we used to be able to do the Q&A, kind of just people put in the chat, and we would try to answer. There are so many people here now that it's not that easy just to go through the chat. Recently, we switched to this Q&A function. So if you'll see in the Zoom, if you're logged into Zoom, there's a little Q&A function there. You can ask questions. We already have 100 questions. We haven't even gotten a Q&A yet. So this is to give you a sense of how many are coming in. But I have a new feature that I want y'all to use because it will help me. In the last few weeks, what we've done is we've just gone through chronologically and tried to pick out questions that we thought were popping up. We're going to try to crowdsource it this time. So people are already doing this, and I commend you for doing it and jumping to it. You can thumbs up questions that you also have, or that you're like, oh yeah, I really want to get them to answer that. I can then sort by which questions have the most thumbs up, and then we can cover that. So we will be listening to you actively instead of relying on our judgment to sort through. You tell us what you want us to answer. We will prioritize those for the live questions. In addition to these live questions, we got just tons of questions in ahead of time. So as per usual, we'll bounce back and forth between questions that came in beforehand and these live questions. I see people voting right now. This is great. We have 40 oh God, we have 90 votes for one of these. This is great. Keep on voting. Keep on saying what you want us to answer. We'll then focus on those. Oh, I love this feature. So thanks for going through this experiment with us. We're trying to make it better for everybody. I also will just note, I do appreciate the emojis, just responses. If you like something that you're hearing, or if you don't like something you're hearing, let us know. I think we can see that. Like, I'm looking at your emojis now. So that is nice, immediate feedback that we like to see. We do a survey after each one of these calls. So we sent out a survey last Friday. We did a little bit of a fun survey in the last one. I asked where are places that you're finding inspiration, particularly in fiction, and we'll share it in the chat. We got hundreds and hundreds of responses from you all, and we got book recommendations, nonfiction and fiction. We got playlist recommendations. We got TV shows. We got podcasts. It's a real interesting, like, it ranges the spectrum. Just to call out a few folks there, On Tyranny from Timothy Snyder. Actually, Timothy Snyder sent us his new book recently on freedom. You should also check that out. The Persuaders by Nangiri Dardas. Incredible book. We did a book club on that a while back. Highly, highly recommend it. I noticed Zephyr, it was Zephyr Teach Outs, but I actually noticed there was another one. Oh, Heather Cox Richardson's book, Democracy Awakening, as well. So peruse it. Take a look. It's a Google Doc. If it's useful, great. You feel free to take it and then make a copy and make it your own. Add other recommendations. I think part of the challenge in being in the struggle against creeping authoritarianism is staying in the struggle against creeping authoritarianism. And I know, I get a lot of inspiration from the groups on the ground, but it is useful to find places for inspiration as we're struggling against some pretty tough stuff. So, like I said, we'll put it in the chat, the Google Doc, but we'll also share it out afterwards. And we're gonna have another survey that goes out tomorrow. It's actually a little bit more of a meaty strategic question. So I'm going to get to that once we get further into the Q&A, but I would really appreciate your thoughts on this because we're debating our orientation towards a future legislative fight and would love to see where movement members are right now. Leah, you can open that if you'd like. She's about to open it. Okay. So with that, just a little bit of a note on where we stand right now in the political ecosystem. As I mentioned at the beginning, it looked like there might be an executive order eliminating or shutting down the Department of Education. We still believe that is in the works, unfortunately, but it's not public. It hasn't been released yet. So for now, we live to fight another day. Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Request to
Leah,
slow down
Leah
in the
and
chat.
I regularly do that. We're trying to get through so much content. We're living to fight another day on the Department of Education. So let's just review where we are right now in this particular political moment. A couple weeks ago, ahead of the first congressional recess of this year, we put out roughly a 30-page toolkit. Y'all might see it's a field guide for how to make the most of congressional recess. We called it Musk or Us, and the reason why we called it Musk or Us is because we've identified through research and through partners that Musk is really the weak link in this MAGA chain. He's deeply unpopular. I've Frankly, I don't think I've ever seen polling that looks worse than the richest man in the world is coming after your social security check or your Head Start or your Meals on Wheels. People hate that. And in fact, it's a weak point for Republicans. They don't want to be tied to it. So that was the goal of the recess toolkit. Musk or us, put pressure on Republicans to actually stand up to Musk, stand up to Trump, stand up to Doge. The response then was pretty wild, y'all. There was press coverage from all over the country constantly of these Republicans in deep red districts. These weren't like swing district Republicans, but these are pretty deep red district Republicans who were just overwhelmed with constituent outrage. And these are Republicans showing up, independents and Democrats showing up angry that these weak-kneed Republicans are just backing up Musk. And so that just made a ton of press. It made them look really bad. And then here was the response from the Republicans. It was such a textbook response. We see this when electeds get pressure like this. But first, the rank and file GOP members who were getting this pressure or who were adjacent to that pressure, they started complaining privately to the White House that Musk was causing them some problems, was producing some heat back home. So that's first. And we saw some news reports of that. Then pretty soon after that, we started seeing public reporting and public comments that, hey, look, I like Donald Trump. Don't get me wrong. He's the best. But this Doge stuff, I think they should slow down. I think they should demonstrate more empathy. Like that was the next stage of response. Then after that, they just started saying, oh no, those protests were fake. Those people weren't real. They weren't real constituents. I don't know who those people were, but it's not real. Everybody loves Elon Musk. Everybody loves Donald Trump. So that's where they went to next. And then Elon Musk tweeted out a picture of me and Leah and said we're Soros-funded AstroTurf, and how dare they do this? And then after that, the Republicans announced we're not going to hold any more town halls. That's what went down. That's how the last week has been. Everyone on this call who participated in any of those town halls or helped apply pressure during the last congressional recess, you should take a bow. You should take a bow. Take this as a compliment. It's working. They are mad about it. They are lashing out fecklessly. The bottom line, we won this round. Look, that we haven't won it all. There's a lot more to do, but we won this round. They are looking weak and they're scared. So now the question is, what's next? What comes next, right? And Leah rolled her eyes at me when I said I was going to say this. So, but I'll still say it, and y'all can roll your eyes at me. Look, we're not flying blind here. There is a ton of research and writing on effective strategies and tactics when you're taking on opponents. Sun Tzu, Machiavelli, Gene Sharp, who does nonviolent resistance. We can give you resources on that if you like. I'm going to pull from somebody who I think is a really smart guy when it comes to tactical innovation, Saul Alinsky. Now, you might not agree with Saul Alinsky's ideology. Lots of people don't, but he was a master tactical thinker. Dick Armey, the Republican right-winger who helped build the proto-MAGA Tea Party movement, he distributed copies of Rules for Radical, Alinsky's work, to Tea Partiers to try to teach them, hey, here's how you should think about tactics on the ground. So I want to zero in on a couple, this is directly relevant to our moment now. I want to zero in on a couple lessons from Alinsky. One is, quote, a tactic that drags on too long becomes a drag. Okay, what he's saying here is that any single tactic, including town halls or marches or calling your member of Congress, anything that you do regularly and repeatedly without change, eventually your people are going to lose interest. The media is going to lose interest. And this is the really important part. Your opponents, your targets, they are going to figure out how to adapt and counter it. And so it is really incumbent on us, those of us who are organizing, to try to apply pressure. We've got to figure out ways to escalate and shift tactics in unexpected ways to keep our targets on their toes. Another thing he would say is the real action is the enemy's reaction. And by that, what he means here is when you have an effective tactic that does effectively make your opponent squirm and puts pressure on them in ways that they don't like, they are going to adapt in some way. But that adaptation, the thing that they do to try to relieve pressure, it might be seen as unfair or authoritarian or harmful in some way, and the public might not like it. And so if that is the case in that adaptation, you got to focus on that and figure out how you can take advantage of it. If you're looking for something newer than the last 60 years, Zeynep Tufekci had this great book, I think back in 2017, called Twitter and Tear Gas, and she's covering the challenges of social movements in the age of social media, but makes some of the same ideas that you can't get stuck in a tactical freeze. You got to go into tactical innovation. You got to innovate and escalate. Okay, so present moment, where we are now. We've had a set of very effective town halls. It's great. Our opponent is adapting, and the specific adaptation is this. They are refusing to show up. They're saying, I'm not going to hold town halls. I'm not going to face my constituents. So pay attention to that adaptation. Pay attention. That is a maladaptive response to an effective tactic on our end. That's what it is. So now not only are they extremists, they're cowards too. They're hiding from their own damn constituents. So look, I think they've made a mistake. I think they've made a bad chess move. They've opened themselves up to this real political vulnerability. And the question for those of us organizing is, okay, how do we take advantage of it? And the answer is given to us. We innovate and we escalate. That's what we do. The next town halls should be starting March 15th. That's the next congressional recess. The week beginning March 15th is the next congressional recess. That is when members of Congress, Republicans included, should be going back home to hold town halls. They're not gonna. The vast majority, maybe none of them, are gonna hold town halls. They're going to hide. So we have a toolkit, we'll post it up, about how to respond to the fact that you've got a missing member. And the answer is you do not wait for them. You schedule it yourself. You work with your fellow constituents, reserve a space, invite friends and family and neighbors, invite local press, invite other elected officials if you'd like, and invite that member. It would be great if they showed up. They probably won't. And when they don't show up, be ready. Have a cardboard cutout, or have a guy in a chicken suit or a live chicken on stage, whatever is the creative thing you want to do. Have some way to represent the fact that they're hiding from you, and make clear that while they can technically physically hide from you, they can't hide from accountability. And then please send the pictures and the videos and the press write-ups to us so we can help elevate it. Now, this is especially useful for the Republicans who are in hiding right now. For Dems, I think the best thing Dems could do is show up and hold their own town halls. Great contrast. What we want are Democratic town halls all across the country with people with showing up and cheering them on to fight back, and then Republicans hiding. That's the contrast we want. Many Democrats are already doing that. There was a good interview with Democrat Maxine Dexter. If you were watching Meta last night, Maxine Dexter showed up to a town hall, a raucous town hall in her district, and she reported this. It was a great story. She reported that it was an emotionally moving town hall, and she heard from her constituents that they wanted her to fight back, and she came back to DC for the address to Congress that Trump gave. And because of that town hall, she thought to herself, I've got to fight back. She walked out. She was one of those members that walked out because she was listening to her constituents. This is ideal. This is how it should work. The Democrats holding town halls, listening to their members or their constituents, and them taking more aggressive action. That is how it should work. Not every Democrat is doing it. And I got to tell you, you have a right to request a town hall, an in-person town hall, not one of these BS virtual town halls, but in-person town halls from your Democratic member. If your Democratic representative is not holding a town hall, look, they're part of the problem, and you should be pushing them to hold it. We want all of them out there holding town halls, and I think it's a reasonable request. Don't feel squeamish about asking them about it. It is a reasonable thing to ask and to expect from your member of Congress. And like I said, many of them are. So this should be an easy ask for you to make. So we are engaged in a crowdsourcing effort to identify where town halls are across the country. We sent an email out following up to this call last week with a way to participate in that. We'll do it again tomorrow. That's where we stand, headed into town halls starting March 15th. We've got resources to give you on how best to do that, but ultimately it's up to you. Constituents either do that or it doesn't happen. So I hope y'all get to planning on those town halls, and I look forward to seeing all the press coverage. Leah, anything before we get to all of the Q&A?
No, it's great.
Should we start with the most thumbs up question so far? I love this feature. We have 514 of you who have thumbs up a Brits question. So let's answer it. How do we convince Democrats to be bolder and break with leadership / the caucus as a whole? Will agree to do. I think some of them want to do more but are holding back because they want to be unified with the whole caucus's plan. Damn, Britt. That is an insightful question.
Correct.
That it could not be more on the point. Leah, do you have an initial thought?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think it depends
Oh,
on,
sorry, I'm
I
moving
know.
over.
The room is not set up for this.
We were very
Um,
squunched in here, but I will try to scoot over.
yeah. So I think it depends a little bit on which category your Democrat currently falls into, right? We've got some people who are just champions. They are out there, they are fighting the good fight, they really want to lean in. And those people, I think it's about working in partnership with them, it's about showing up for them, it's about if you're seeing somebody who's making the right arguments, throwing some cash their way so they got a little bit more power to throw their weight around in the intra-caucus fights. All of those things are great for people who are really like champions and leaning in. Then there's like people who are just a little bit more in the middle, they're just trying to do their job. They're not necessarily clear on exactly what you want to see from them. And with that, I think it's continuing to contact them. I think it's continuing to engage them. Again, like this ask around, can you host a town hall? What are your public events? We want to show up. We want to talk to you about why it's important to fight back. And ultimately, we want to support you as you fight back, right? Because like fundamentally, where we want to get is a partnership. We want people, Democrats to lead, and we want to cheer them on as they are leading. So we want to convince people that there is a big constituency that is ready to fight with them as they go on the offensive. And then there's just some folks who are not with this. And then you need to like make your disapproval heard. I think the second most popular question is about what the heck is going on with the 10 Democrats who voted to censure Representative Green. Ezra, do you want to take that one as an example of that last category of Democrats?
Look, folks, I'm extremely disappointed. I'm extremely, you know what I wanted to see when they were throwing Green out of Congress, I want to see every single Democratic stand up in solidarity and say, "Oh, you're throwing him out, you got to throw me out too." That's what I would have liked to see. And to see him be the only one that was thrown out, I didn't like to see that. I was disappointed in that. I was happy to see folks like Jasmine Crockett and Maxwell Frost and others leave and make a protest and stink getting out. I thought that was good. Uh, so I was disappointed enough with that behavior. But then to see 10 Democrats join with Republicans to censure the only guy who is willing to stand up and make a fuss and call out Trump, I don't like it. I don't like it. That is not a unified opposition party. And let me tell you, we should be focusing, especially if you're a constituent, you should be focusing on those members and express why you're disappointed. But I want to make clear, you do not have that kind of vote with 10 Democrats voting to censure their own fellow Democrat unless they have the go ahead from Democratic leadership. Hakeem Jeffries could have whipped this vote. He could have whipped this vote. Leadership could have whipped this vote. If you were disappointed with the show of protest inside the Capitol during that speech, it's not because there weren't many members trying to organize aggressive actions. It was because leadership was actively organizing against them and telling them, no, shut up, don't make a big stink. So we should not pretend as if there is a fully unified opposition party in this moment. And I agree with what Leah said about how we build that. We should be celebrating those who are fighting. We have to show support. And we should be providing feedback to those who aren't with us right now because we need them on our side. We're not going to build this opposition movement with just a fraction of the Democratic Party. There are some leaders who we should celebrate, but we're going to build it by convincing everybody that this is the path forward. This is morally correct, but it's also politically strategic. So provide that feedback. You have a right to be disappointed. You have a right to be angry. And also, this isn't the last fight. It's not game over now because this happened. We can continue to push and we can continue to make progress. So don't lose hope. Show up for those who are showing up for you, and keep building. Leah, anything else on that?
That's great.
Okay. Got a lot of questions on town halls ahead of time, and so I'm just going to read off a few of them. We answered some of this already, but just to make sure we get to them. Andrea from Minnesota, best ideas to get Republicans to hold a town hall. We kind of covered that. The empty chair town hall. Karen, Ohio, similar. How to force our two Ohio Senate Republicans to hold town halls. Similar answer. You're focused on the right thing. It's a good idea to push for that.
Yeah, I would just say, I mean, it's not just us saying we don't think they're going to have town halls. They've literally gotten
Yeah.
guidance from the NRCC, the group, like the coordinating body for getting Republicans reelected in the House, being like, do not host town halls, right? Okay, so they're like very clear. They are making a clear cross-party decision that they will not be engaging with their constituents in the immediate future. So it's not a matter of like come up with a good tactic. Like they've decided that what they're going to do is hide from the voters for as long as they can.
Right. And just want to remind everybody, you can be voting for questions as they come in, and we're just going to take the most most in-demand questions. Mary asked,
Oh wait, I do want to say
oh,
one more
sorry,
thing
yeah,
on
go.
that. I just want to put this Ezra like the strategy around town halls in context for folks around how we're thinking about this as an escalation, right? So we think it's really important during this period to reclaim the understanding of our side as the majority, right?
Mm,
Our ideas are popular, our policies are popular, their policies incredibly unpopular when put into action. And so part of what we're doing is a series of actions that demonstrate that in practice, right? If Republicans' ideas were good and people were happy with them, they would not be afraid to go talk to their voters. What we are going to see over the month of March is that Republicans, as their ideas kick in and go into practice and hurt real people all over this country, they respond by going into hiding. They want to avoid their constituents at all costs. Democrats, meanwhile, if we do our jobs right, if we encourage them and they get out there, they're going to be out there. They're going to be talking about what the harm is, what is happening,
hmm
how they're going to fight back. We're going to collectively get the word out to as many people as possible. If we do this right, we end the month of March, and it's really clear that we've got the popular momentum on our side, that we've got the majority on our side, that they're the ones who should be afraid of the voters right now.
Yeah, 1,000%. Um, I'm just loving this democratic feature if
Yeah,
people
this
can
is
just
very
vote.
cool.
It's very cool, and then we don't have to exercise independent judgment. We can
Yeah,
just
this is
look at
fun.
what you're interested in. So Mary asks, I'm very worried about dismantling of the election as cybersecurity agencies. How is that going to affect our ability to win the midterms? What can we do about it? Leah, we have a whole line of work around
Election
protecting
security, yeah.
election infrastructure. Do you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, so I guess what I would say is I think there's a piece of this that's about local protection of elections, which is what a bunch of indivisible groups do around watchdogging, the local county clerk, the folks who are actually on the ground level in charge of administering elections and making sure that those people are the right people, that they are committed democratic ideals, that if a MAGA election denier has gotten in, that they're being watched like a hawk. That stuff is super important. I think what Mary is talking about here is like the literal federal cybersecurity agencies, which the Trump administration is coming for. And I'm just going to be honest, the short answer is it is concerning, and we are going to have to like track and monitor it and have an assessment of the damage. And it's hard to know from the outside and from right now exactly how dangerous it is.
Yep. Okay, we answered a whole bunch of questions on town halls that came in at time. I do want to answer a couple questions that came in ahead of time. Then we'll head back to the super popular questions that are coming in live. Um, Somebody asked, Janie asked, why Schumer and Jeffries aren't taking leadership action. So I think as we've covered, part of this is just leadership. Like leadership can whip, right? Leadership can say, "Hey, all Democrats, we need to vote a certain way, and we're just going to do that," and that's demonstrating leadership. But keep in mind, Jeffries and Schumer, and this is true of anybody in a leadership position on Capitol Hill, their constituency are other members of their caucus. So Schumer is looking to what do other Senate Democrats want? Jeffries is looking to what do other House Democrats want? So if Jeffries is taking some sort of action that you don't like or not taking action that you would like, you should look to, well, what are rank and file members doing? So that means if you are represented by Amy Barra, for example, I saw in the chat in California, who voted to censure Al Green, one of the reasons why Jeffries might not be taking actions is because Amy Barra is saying, "Hey, I don't want you to push too hard on this." And you want Amy Barra to be a fighter. So you want to encourage him to say, "Hey, actually, Jeffries, I need you to push forward more on this." We want all rank and file Democrats encouraging leadership. That will make it easier for Jeffries to lead. This is not to absolve them from responsibility. Like we want Jeffries and Schumer also exercising some control over the caucus. But I want to be clear, it's not just them. It's not just them. It is all Democrats need to be pushing for that. Many are. I want to be clear. There are many very good leaders within the Democratic caucus on the House and the Senate side who are fighting the good fight. We should support them, and we should encourage others to lead just as strongly and vocally and publicly.
I think that's all right. The other thing that I would just add is there's a theory that these folks are working off of,
Ah,
right?
good, good,
Like
good.
if you
Yeah.
think about what Schumer said and how he led during the nominations fight, I think this is an example. He talked about strategic silence, and the whole theory was Democrats were going to kind of stay off the field and let Republican contradictions emerge and let them fight each other over their like wildly horrifying nominees. And we should just be clear, that did not work, right?
Did
Like
not work.
the ultimate conclusion of that was that most of those folks got confirmed without nearly the kind of public fuss that would have been kicked up if Democrats had been ferociously running campaigns in opposition over the couple months between when they were named and when they were voted on. So we did not peel off the folks that I think there was a hope that we'd peel off. The nominees got confirmed, and the ultimate outcome was that Trump was more popular earlier on than he might have been had someone been making a spirited case about exactly how dangerous and damaging his nominees were. So there's a theory here, and we have to alter the calculus behind that theory. We have to make it better and more attractive and the path of least resistance for them to really be out front fighting, because that is what our theory is, that if we're actually presenting a strong contrast, if we're a real organized opposition party that's taking every opportunity to fight back, that's going to be the best path forward, both for protecting the things we care about and ultimately for winning.
Yep. We mentioned this last week, but just to raise it again because it made me so mad. James Carville's op-ed in the New York Times, in which he said Democrats should roll over and play dead. That's a direct quote. I'm not characterizing it. Those are his words. I think it's dumb as hell. And I am glad he put it on paper. That is the strategy of some. They believe that we can be quiet and win against the authoritarians. I do not believe that. Indivisibles do not believe that. The reason why we are organizing is to fight back. To when they throw punches at us, we do not meekly cower or just accept it. No, we fight back. That is what we are doing in a nonviolent, movement building way. That is what we do. Okay, more questions that came in ahead of time. Kate from California, we got a few questions about Musk, of course. Explain how Musk and Trump are bypassing the law with their power plays, and what can we do, if anything? Specifically on Musk, Leah, do you want to comment?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I could spend the rest of the chat talking about like the ways in which they have, the ways in which they have encroached on the authority of Congress, the ways in which they are actively disregarding their constitutional obligations. It's a whole host of things. I think the basic core of the Musk-Trump funding fight, power grab, whatever we're gonna, crime spree would probably be the best thing to call it, is the basic division of labor, right, is that Congress passes a budget and the budget says what the money is supposed to go for. And the president is in charge of executing that on that budget, right? The president administers the agencies, he appoints people to be in charge of that. He is not supposed to say, oh, you've given me X millions, billions of dollars, trillions of dollars. I'm just going to use that the way I want to use it. Or I'm not going to spend money on this or that. There have been a bunch of court cases about this. This is not like a new and completely novel idea. There is settled law about impoundment. There is settled law about expectations for how the president is supposed to spend money and what his authorities are and what the limits of his authority are. And they have simply been disregarding all of that. And, there's a whole other additional set of things around like Elon Musk. Is he, as a federal employee, has he got the actual like authority to do any of the things that he personally is doing? What is Doge even? All of that stuff is like, I mean, we're just so far over the lines of what is remotely acceptable, what is remotely legal or constitutional. It's just, again, I could spend the entire rest of this time talking about it. The core thing that we should understand is that they are attempting to use a bunch of powers that they don't have in order to grab and hold powers that they want in order to cement their control over the federal government so that they can reward their friends and punish their enemies. And when I say their enemies, I mean all of us, like regular people who do not go along with them, people in blue states, people who depend on services and supports from the federal government to survive. They're coming after all of us.
Yep. That's right. Let's go back to some popular questions that came in. Daphne said, Maxine Waters, who we love, just suggested that Elon Musk may have hacked the election for Trump. Who is investigating? How can Indivisible push this? I'd be super curious in seeing any evidence that there was widespread hacking or corruption or tampering. I haven't seen it, folks. I think that's just the bottom line. I haven't seen any evidence. There have been investigations. I would be first to call this out. We were part of efforts to prevent any sort of coup or sabotage. That was actually how we spent a lot of 2024, was working with partners in the legal and cybersecurity space, trying to prepare for that. I would look at any evidence otherwise, but I do think we should be focusing on what is it that we can do right now, and what are the fights that we can have some impact. And until I see other evidence, I would focus on those fights. That's my honest response.
Yeah, I want to distinguish between like voter suppression and active efforts to suppress the vote and kind of the set of allegations around tampering with vote tallies via some kind of mechanism. Like there has been a long and rich history of voter suppression, and particularly voter suppression targeting communities of color in this country, and especially in the last 4 years since Biden won and as the big lie movement has taken off. There were actual incidents in places like Georgia targeting majority Black precincts. These things did happen. we do not have a body of evidence suggesting that there was organized, tampering with the vote totals in a way that would have altered the election. And indeed, if you look at kind of across the country and all of the different voting systems and different ways of counting and paper ballots and computer ballots, et cetera, there's not the kind of pattern that would suggest discrepancies between the things that can be hacked and the things that cannot be hacked. So we're obviously we will continue to track and look for any, like we take very seriously any allegations that come up, but that is not a path that we are currently, pursuing as a primary possibility.
Yeah. I'm seeing some questions in the chat. I'm just reminding you, the way that we're getting these questions right now is literally people put them in the Q&A and then other folks vote on them. So if you want your question, if you've got a good one, put it in there and allow other folks to vote so we can get to it. Carla asked, I keep thinking that until we keep right-wing media accountable to the truth, we're fighting an uphill battle. Do you know of anyone working on this?
You want to take that one?
So I think the media ecosystem is a huge, huge problem for us. I don't have a lot of hope that somebody is going to convince Breitbart or Daily Wire or Fox News to suddenly see the light and not just be a propaganda arm of the Republican Party and the MAGA movement. I think that's just a reality. There will be MAGA news sources. That is what a Fox News is. That's what a Breitbart is. That's going to exist. When it comes to the media, I'm actually far more interested in emerging media. So not just, I love Rachel Maddow. Look at my cup. I think Rachel Maddow is great. She's doing a lot to cover what's actually happening on the ground. I think there is value in being covered in mainstream media like a New York Times or a Washington Post. But if we're going to build a successful pro-democracy movement, it can't just be among people who are paying the closest attention to political news. That's not how we're going to reach folks. Increasingly, people are not getting their news from the New York Times or NPR or Fox News for that matter. People are looking towards emerging platforms. So that is your influencer on TikTok or Instagram. It's a podcast by somebody. It's other places that aren't just political sources for news that are branded liberal or progressive or conservative or radical right. We should be investing in those spaces. We should be, with our money, with our subscriptions, with our attention, we should be investing in alternative independent sources of news. I really believe that. A couple of times we've done surveys of this groups around where are you getting your news, and we'll re-up those actually in the survey. Folks like Jen Rubin, who was at the Washington Post, but then founded the Contrarian, which is this independent source. There are a lot of good influencers like Jessica Craven, Chop Wood Carry Water. I almost said chop water, carry wood. That would be wrong. Politics Girl, Lee. There are influencers out there with smart takes who aren't owned and operated by the corporate billionaires or have any ties to the MAGA class. We should be finding information from those folks, and we should be giving them subscribers, and we should be partnering with them to reach new people. I think that is a kind of a new frontier for many of us. We did a lot of work in mainstream media, and this is something that Indivisible is pushing forward into and trying to do some more experimental work. So, like I said, we'll share some of the ideas that have come from the movement. If you have others, let us know. I think this is an exciting space and really necessary. So, great question, Carla. I'm going to do one more question that came in live, and then we'll bounce back to some that came in ahead of time. We kind of answered this one, but JM, what do we know about Dems who voted to censure Al Green, or what do we do about them even if we're not in their district? I think what I would say is, if you've got a Dem who didn't censor Al Green, thank them. Really, like 200-ish House Dems did not vote to censor Al Green. 10 of them did. That's bad. They should get critiqued. For the 200 who did, thank them for showing up. That is great. They did their job, and they should get appreciation. Those thank yous, when they have closed door meetings with other Democrats on Capitol Hill, there are going to be a lot of people saying, yeah, sucks that you're getting a lot of pressure. I was just getting a lot of thank yous. We want that to be the conversation. It's an easy call. It should be a delightful call to make. Give them a call. Say, hey, I just saw you voted the right way. Just wanted to let you know I'm a constituent, and I really appreciate what the boss did.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't stress enough how, like, a bunch of Democrats are just trying to find their footing. And
Yeah.
stuff like that,
Yeah.
like positive reinforcement for acts of defiance and acts of organizing cohesively, even if it's just a baby step, like that helps them take the next step.
Yep. Okay, I promised I would do some questions that came in ahead of time. There's just so many great ones that are coming up and being voted on. So we'll bounce back to those in a sec. This is a great practical question. Carl from West Virginia asked, "What is the most important thing we can be doing right now in our local Indivisible group to save our democracy?" Carl really cutting to the heart of it.
Dang.
Yeah,
Did Carl say where he was from?
West Virginia.
West Virginia.
Love
Okay,
it.
wow. All right, love it. Yeah. I mean, look, I think that Ezra opened with it. This is the month when we are doing a nationwide push to make sure people understand what is at stake with Musk and Trump's attack on our government, with the coming attempt to gut Medicaid in order to hand another round of tax breaks to billionaires. We want to do a nationwide push. That's what the town halls are for. That's what the empty chair town halls are for. That's what we're trying to ask Democrats to get out in the communities and tell everyone and raise the alarm. So wherever you are, being part of that nationwide push, thinking about how are you going to creatively get the word out in your community. And remember that core story of we're alarmed and we're on the offensive and Republicans are scared because
Mhm.
their ideas are unpopular and so they are hiding rather than defending them. We want to stress that story wherever we can and however we can.
And I would just say, Carl, you're in West Virginia. Look, I'm from rural Texas. I'm used to having nothing but Republicans as far as the eye can see. And in fact, Republicans like a Ted Cruz, who just does not care normally whether or not you show up. We are in an interesting political moment right now. A lot of the time, especially over the last 6 years, Republicans have been able to just ignore pressure like this because it wasn't sufficiently widespread. They weren't actually in control, so they couldn't do a lot of damage. So it was all kind of hypothetical. That's not the moment now. Right now, they are doing damage. And so a story of hundreds of people in West Virginia showed up outside their senator's office or held a town hall. That's news. That's surprising because then the story is not just, oh, progressives are organizing or blue states are organizing or city centers are organizing. It's this is everywhere. That's the
Yeah.
story we want. We want this everywhere. So take advantage of the fact that you're in West Virginia right now. Really, it is an opportunity to make a point that other folks aren't as well situated to make. So I'm excited to see what comes out of West Virginia. Let's go to another live question. It's got 333 votes. Congratulations, congrats, Catherine. Greetings, Leah and Ezra. Hi. Can you explain to us why the Dim Caucus has chosen a strategy of silent passivity? Geez, those stupid lie signs the other night. Instead of strong rebellion, it makes me mad. How do we know their strategy? But how do we know their strategy isn't smarter long game? Great. I love that we're trying to consider pros and cons. Is it smart of them to hold their fire so they can make deals in the 60 vote situations? You're pulling
Okay.
together a few threads here, Leah. Do you want to cover it?
I've got to start by sticking up for the signs, y'all. Look, I just want to be really clear. There are people who smuggled signs into the State of the Union. There are people who declined to go to the State of the Union. There are people who walked out of the State of the Union. All of those people tried to do something, okay? And that puts them in the top like 20% of the
Yeah, that's true.
Democratic caucus right now. Those are people who like tried to stage some kind of reaction to what is happening rather than going with the strategy of I'm gonna go, but I'm gonna like look sad the entire time, which was the actual plan, just to be clear. So like let's all try and calibrate there. Like we're gonna
It's a
try
great
some
point.
things. They're not always gonna work, but we want to cheer people on for actually trying things right now. So with
Great
that,
point.
with that like modification on the signs.
Yep.
Um what I would say overall is I think that there has been something of an overcorrection around 2024. I think that there has been a kind of core theory around this was an election about lower prices. And what that means is that the only thing that we should talk about for the future is lower prices. And that's kind of like a dominant theory in a bunch of places. And lower prices are super important. A lot of evidence that we have suggests that one of the core lines of attack that we're going to want to pursue on Trump is about the fact that he promised to lower prices on day one and it's not happening. That is real. That is like an actual and important line of political attack. And also, if you are an opposition party during a period when democracy is very visibly under threat on all fronts, you cannot simply decide that you're only going to talk about lower prices and you're not actually going to defend and fight for the things that make our country function, are the systems that make our country function. Now, I think this is like a really we think this is true both in terms of the politics of the moment and in terms of kind of the moral case of the moment. We think that simply ceding the ground on a bunch of things does not set you up better politically to win because you've been talking about something that tests better in the polls. And that's for a couple of reasons. One is just like strategically speaking, that means you've just left a bunch of ground undefended and they can go faster in those places. But the other is that we're in an era where you have to invite conflict in order to get your message
Yeah,
out at all.
that's right.
If you say the same thing over and over and over again, and it's not a very interesting thing, it's not going to get out there anymore, right? Like the way that people are getting their news is not one press story in which Democrats always get a little paragraph, and they always get to say their message in the middle of the paragraph.
Yeah.
The way people get their news is on TikTok. And if you are not interesting, nobody on TikTok has to give you the right of response. They're just going to ignore you entirely. So I think it's a lot of the kind of like quiet strategy is really based in a misread of how information travels and how people are consuming and processing what is happening right now.
Yep.
That was a bit of a windy answer, but
No, I think that's right. I do want to note, like, this is a strategic disagreement, and you can both share the same goal of we want to ultimately get Trump out and reduce damage and disagree on this. I just have not seen evidence in the international context of creeping authoritarianism being effectively beaten back by quiet,
quiet
quiet
action. Yeah,
behavior.
right.
And I haven't seen any evidence in the first 4 months that, every single Democrat in the Senate voted for Marco Rubio to be Secretary of State. What did we get out of that? He dismantled USAID. He sat in that ambush meeting in the Oval Office with Trump and JD Vance while they attacked Zelensky. They haven't moderated at all. Enough Democrats voted for the Lake and Riley immigration bill, the MAGA messaging bill that allows Trump now to unilaterally just go after and state leaders to go after DACA recipients and to people just accused of crimes, not even convicted. Did Trump suddenly moderate on immigration as a result of Democrats giving him votes on that? No, he started shipping immigrants over to Guantanamo. I mean, we have ample evidence that these folks don't respect anything other than strength and votes. They are not going to say, oh, they did us a favor here. We're not going to be extremists anymore. That's not part of their playbook. So we can disagree. I don't know where the arguments are coming on that other side. Okay, another question from Carla. I heard they want to deport Ukrainian refugees now. Is calling our Congress people an effective way to stop this? I just saw some notes about that
Yeah,
today. Yeah,
it's really, I
it's
mean,
terrible.
it's
It's
scary and it's
horrific.
awful. And it's part of a broader crackdown on temporary protected status for a whole host of different folks from different countries that are at war or under threat. So I do just want to put it in the context of a broader assault on different refugee populations from around the world, who are here for equally terrifying and terrible situations. Um, I would absolutely contact your members of Congress. I think that certainly in this moment, the best lever is going to be your elected officials. I think that solidarity rallies, I think that actions that are, standing in solidarity with refugees under attack are all going to be important parts of the pushback. I don't want to promise in a moment when the administration has a very clear ideological axe that they are grinding, or well, I don't know why I'm being diplomatic about it. When they're in Putin's pocket, that like this is not being driven by a pretty deep and a deeply troubling overall orientation towards Ukraine that we saw on full display in the Oval Office last week. But I absolutely think that your members of Congress should be hearing about this, and this should be one of several things that we are wedging them on in relation to the administration because this is not popular. This is not good. People do not like throwing folks who have sought refuge in the US out for screwed up ideological reasons. Sorry.
It's okay. Look,
There we
we're
go.
not on cable TV. We can curse here. Um, I mean, it relates to the next top requested question, so we'll cover it in a sec. But I really had hoped that after that ambush in the Oval Office and after Trump cut off military aid and after this aggressive tactic towards Ukrainian refugees, that you would have seen in that speech some sort of demonstrated opposition to Trump based purely on that. Trump has taken the side of Putin. He has taken the side of Putin. I mean, absorb that basic information. This is wild. This is not just a typical tax or social policy or education policy or budget fight. That's not what we're talking about here. I mean, this isn't Democrats versus Republicans. My God, what do we like? What I'm speechless. I was so furious to see what happened in the Oval Office. And then to see Republicans, not just like Marco Rubio, but the supposed hawks, the supposed anti-Putin, like
Yeah.
Lindsey Graham. My God, that guy is freaking jello. That guy has absolutely no spine at all. None of them stood up. None of them were willing to take on. And the we need an opposition party in this
Yeah.
country. We need a party that says this isn't just we disagree with your ideology. This is something more foundational.
Yeah.
There is something deeply scary and dark going on, and we are not going to go along with it. And so, should you call your member of Congress? You're goddamn right. You should call your member of Congress about this, and you should be friendly, and you shouldn't curse because they might not take your comment. But you should be firm. You are right to be angry about this. You are right to raise the level of alarm, and you are right to tell them that just talking about Medicaid again and again and again, or inflation again and again and again, or the budget fight again and again and again. Yeah, we care about those fights. Don't get me wrong. That's not the only thing going on in this country right now. We are in a fight for democracy domestically and internationally, and we need the opposition party to make that point.
I will just add, when you call though, talk about temporary protected status overall, because
Yes,
they are
yes.
on a tear. They are going after, if folks followed the, they're building on the attack that they launched during the campaign on Haitian refugees in Springfield with attack on Haitian folks who are in the country on TPS. Like, this is a broader assault on a broad population of people who are here because they are seeking refuge from conflict, from natural disasters. This is part of it is part of a pro-Putin agenda. It
Yep,
is
yep.
part of like a white supremacist agenda. It is overall just them imposing their twisted worldview on the rest of us and like going against the fundamental promise of this country.
So, related to this, Leah, somebody's calling us out. And it's good. We should have questions like this. Why isn't Indivisible calling for impeachment? And I will remind folks back in, was this 2017? No.
I mean,
Remember the first reason for Trump's impeachment was he was extorting Zelensky. He wanted dirt on his opponent.
no, I mean, we called for, well, I mean, first reason for impeachment.
Oh, well, right. But
There were many reasons.
sure, but the first impeachment was that. That was why he was impeached in the House. He was extorting Zelensky. He wanted dirt on his political opponent. And here we are again talking about him. I mean, just doing abominable things to Zelensky personally and to the state of Ukraine. Um, why isn't Indivisible calling for impeachment, Lee? What is the logic right
absolutely.
now? Yeah.
Well, first, I just want to be really clear. The fact that we don't put a bunch of organizational weight behind one specific call on this does not mean that we don't think he's doing things that regularly merit it, right? Like,
course.
like we think he should be prosecuted for a bunch of stuff he is not currently being prosecuted for. We are all operating in a situation where they're like, what should be happening got delinked from what is happening a long time ago, and we are trying to make strategic calls about what is going to build the popular majority that is necessary to reclaim power in this country, right? And so what we are thinking about in terms of how we're orienting and where we're putting our energy is what harm can we mitigate about what they are doing, and how do we build that big, broad electoral majoritarian coalition that's going to get us, that's gonna block these people for good, that's gonna get us back into power and get them out of power, more importantly. And fundamentally, when we're thinking about that, we want to think about the threats that are most live and most immediate and that really hit a lot of people around the country. So we're talking a lot to you about Medicaid. We are talking to you about the Musk attacks on everything that we personally care about and depend on to live a dignified lives. We're talking to you about things that are kind of fundamental attacks on American values. Those are what are you laughing
No,
at?
I'm just looking at the next question that asks us to speak slower. I'm
Oh,
sorry,
no,
y'all.
sorry. Okay, sorry, that upvote. That's wow, called out. Um, so we're trying to think very carefully about like where can we stop some harm and where can we build to get these folks out. And impeachment isn't like one of the first on either of those criteria. It does not mean he shouldn't be impeached. It does not mean he shouldn't be prosecuted. It just means that where we're campaigning, we're trying to meet one of those two goals.
That's exactly right. But keep pushing.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not going to tell you not to. Um, Samita asks, where do legislators get their information about what's going on in the wider world of non-politicians, especially intangibles like public moods, popular terminology, the
Yeah.
general zeitgeist? Sometimes I hear things from these folks that makes me wonder if they've ever met a regular person.
That's
Samita,
really
I hope I'm
funny.
pronouncing your name right. What a great question. Leah, do you want to? So we both work for members of Congress. Leah, do you want to
Yeah.
reflect on how your member of Congress touched grass, as they say?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, I can, but he was
Yeah,
not a
he's not.
normal represent,
That's
like
right. That's right.
in a good way.
Yeah.
Like
Tom
not,
is a good
not really.
guy.
Yeah, he's a really great guy. But what I would say is like the average elected's day involves, going into Congress, talking to other electeds, talking to their staff, getting information from their staff that summarizes a bunch of complicated inputs, getting calls from donors or stakeholders in their district, talking to other people across the party ecosystem, going home over the weekend and doing a bunch of events at random places across the district, often with friendly audiences, often, and then a lot of calling donors.
Yeah, a lot
Like
of
literally
yeah.
hours of calling donors. And it's very unpleasant, actually. Like you would be surprised by how unpleasant it looks. But nonetheless, so if you're like, it doesn't feel like these people are having a lot of conversations with regular folks, sometimes that's like quite literally true,
Yep,
right? And especially with some of these folks who are actively avoiding public events,
that's key.
that is key, right? So if you're thinking about, Mike Lawler, right? I know we've got some folks who are in Mike Lawler's district and who is very much hiding from public events. He literally isn't talking to a bunch of people in his district who have contrary opinions. And so I think I would not underestimate the extent to which people's informational environments get
Skewed.
skewed by who they are in touch with and how they're what they're hearing from. And so they have a general idea that there's abstract anger, but they actually like literally don't know what it looks like.
So I mentioned Maxine Dexter earlier, the representative who held a town hall. This is one of the reasons why we think Democrats should hold town halls. It is good to talk to normal people. It's good to talk to your constituents because they might share things with you that you didn't fully comprehend before, that you might not hear from a donor. So that is really good. I do want to cover. I said I was going to preview a survey question on a meaty strategic issue, and I want to preview that for you because it's coming tomorrow. Uh, let me tell you what we're facing and what I want your thoughts on. So this is going to be in the survey. We are headed towards this impending fight over
Hey,
the funding bill.
wait.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry. No,
yeah.
oh, you go ahead. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm
Uh,
realizing we have another announcement to make after this.
yeah, we've got two announcements actually. So stay tuned. Actually, I'm excited for both of them. So one, this survey question on a strategic fight we're getting into. So the question is, uh, we're going to run out of government funding on March 14th. And currently there's a debate about whether and how Democrats will fight on this. There are three potential options. And the survey is going to include these potential options. And I want your thoughts on, yeah, I want them to do this. Absolutely. Or no, not this. I want that. Or none of the above. I want them to do this. The three options broadly are one, they can vote. Democrats can say, okay, we're going to vote for a clean short-term funding bill just for a couple weeks. And until you agree to ironclad protections against what Musk is doing, we're not going to vote for more funding. And every 2 weeks, you can come to us and ask for more funding, but no long-term funding. That's option one. I'm just laying out the options. Option two, they can just straight up refuse to vote for any funding bill until there are ironclad protections. That probably means that Republicans won't be able to pass anything on their own, and that we'll go into shutdown. And Democrats will say, "Hey, you got to shut it down. If you want our votes to reopen the government, tell us that Elon Musk isn't going to steal our money." And the third option is just a clean long-term funding bill. It's basically a bill that says, yeah, we don't really want to fight on this. We want to fight on other things, maybe Medicaid or taxes. We'll give you a funding bill that doesn't have any nasty riders or anything, but we're not going to get protections from Musk. Those are the three options. You don't need to vote now. It's going to be in the survey, but those are kind of the pathways in front of us, and it would legitimately be helpful to get y'all's input on this. So look out for the survey afterwards. Just wanted to preview it so you know what's coming. Leah, you want to make your announcement?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So I've seen a couple of different comments flying by in the chat box around when are we going to all do a mass action? When are we going to all protest, take to the streets? I see a couple of rising questions about like, Are you coordinating with other organizations? I want to give you all a heads up that this is not official and it's going to come out officially next week, but we are looking at a mass mobilization collectively in early April to try and pull together a bunch of our movement strength and really show people exactly how big and how broad and how deep the opposition is to what is happening in this country. So the tentative date is April 5th. We are going to be circulating information about that next week, but we wanted to give folks here an early heads up because we know there's a lot of leaders on this call who will actively be interested in wanting to be involved in planning that in your own communities. We're looking for this to be a moment where we all come together to say hell no to what has been happening, to say hell no to the attack that they are mounting through the federal budget system on Medicaid and Medicare in exchange for the billionaire tax cuts, to fight back against Elon Musk and say Musk or us, all of that coming together in early April and really showing the depth of opposition in this country. So, and I see a lot of hearts, so I
love the
suspect
hearts.
that there is some enthusiasm.
4, 5, 25, no kings.
Yeah.
Show up. We're all organizing. And to be clear, it's not just Indivisible. We are talking with the 50-51 folks. We're talking with folks all across the ecosystem, a lot of our partners. I think this is going to be big. I think this is something that we've been trying to build for. We are building the muscle. It's not going to be the end of it, but I think it's going to be something that you're going to want to be part of, and we want you to be part of it. Y'all, I will just say thank you for participating in this experiment of the live democratic voting for questions. We, as per usual, did not get through nearly all of the 1,200 questions that came in, but I did like relying on you to pick the ones that you were most interested in. I think we're just going to keep on doing this. So if you like it, tell us. If you want something else, tell us that. We're trying to innovate. We're trying to make this better for you all. Thank you for coming. Same time next week, 3 p.m. Eastern time. You can find us here. And just keep up the fight, y'all. We are having an impact. We are doing good. We're all doing our part. It's not on any one of us, but you see what's here. This organization happening around the country. There are more of us than there are of them. You got to feel that. You really got to feel that. And I feel that every Thursday at 3 p.m. when you all log on. So let's keep on building together.
Thanks, y'all.